Remember when we used to go to concerts and we used to have fun and we used to meet up with thousands of people and have a good time and spend time outdoors and just check out events? Well, those days are long gone and I miss them, and I know a lot of people miss them. And Annie Brooks was the marketing director at a major radio station in Portland. And then she moved on to music and records with Triple Tigers Records, which means she's been involved with events, marketing, and promotions of major brands, local brands, radio stations, clients, artists, and that's changed a lot over the last 12 months. So, Annie, why don't you step in and just tell us who you are, where you're from, kind of what your hobbies are, and then we'll talk about how you got into radio and then made that move into music, and then what is the state of events? And I know no one really knows, but since you're on the inside track, maybe you'll have a little more information than the rest of us.
I'm Annie Brooks. I live here in Vancouver, Washington. I graduated from WSU in Pullman with a degree in intercultural communication and a minor in psychology. So it's crazy that I even ended up in the music business, but it's been a dream of mine since I was 14 years old. And I spend most of my time, especially in this pandemic, with a very small group of friends that we are together all the time, which is a huge blessing, considering we can't really go anywhere right now. And that time with my horse and sometimes my family, but they don't live too close by. So I take advantage when I get to see them, but otherwise just a lot of time with my horse and myself.
Yeah, well, at least you get to see some friends and spend time with your horse, because we're all kind of trying to figure that out. We don't get to do a whole lot with a whole lot of people. So I'm glad you have that outlet and you have a chance to get out and about a little bit anyway. And I know, eventually that's going to change. Let's talk about college and getting started in radio.
Yeah, I went to WSU Pullman. I graduated in 2010, which is my anniversary was a couple weeks ago, which means that I've been out of college for 10 years. So feel a little ancient, but also done a lot in 10 years. I had a really bad roommate one year, and my mom encouraged me to find some sort of group or club or something to get me out of the apartment, outside of classes, just to keep me busy and learn something new. And I found the Student Entertainment Board, which was a group of students on campus who put together events for the student body. And I ended up getting the position of concert programmer. So I planned concerts for the student body. It was 2 semesters. So I got to do that and learn about the backside of the music business and, working with artists and putting on a huge event, which turns out was I'm pretty good at, because I've been doing it now for a long time, putting on events, especially in radio. And then that I had to have a internship in the communication field as a requirement to graduate, and I ended up finding Entercom Radio. They had a summer internship open for a street teamer where I got to go to, events and things, but that required, was my qualification to graduate. And after I graduated, they asked me to come back part-time, and started my radio career.
So how did you become the marketing director? Like, what was that path?
That was a unexpected path. I wasn't really sure. I was just sort of going with the flow of things. I started out as a street teamer part-time, just helping out where I could. And then I started helping in the office for multiple stations. Just again, things like prizes and working with listeners and helping with events and promoting products and whatnot. So a lot of filing, a lot of computer work. And then a part-time or full-time position came open for the 99.5 The Wolf. Ended up getting that. And then about 3 months later, the marketing director at the time left, and her boss, who then became my boss, Mike Moore, he told me to apply for the position, and I did, and we talked about it, and then I became marketing director. It was a huge adjustment, but I did it, and it was awesome.
So back to being on the street team and getting all of that experience and then applying for that job. I know that job came with 5 years of experience, which you didn't have.
Yeah.
So how does somebody make that leap? I mean, that's a big leap. And there are a lot of people now that are looking for jobs, and they're like, those job descriptions are the job descriptions of 5 people. And you're looking at it like, well, I don't have all of this. And in a lot of cases, not that kind of experience. So how does somebody make that leap and have kind of that courage and that faith to apply for that job?
A big part of that was Mike Moore. He really had a lot of faith in me, and obviously saw things in me that I didn't see in myself at the time. So his encouragement really pushed me to apply for the job. It was a 2-month process. It took him a long time to convince me to do that. But during that time, I was still doing all of the things that the marketing, or a big chunk of the things that the marketing director would be doing, managing multiple accounts with the sales team and putting on events and putting together promotions and prizes and working with the legal team. Like, I was doing all of it already. I kind of figured that there's 2 things I would say that got me to that point. Was I'm just a solid worker. Like, I don't want to say no. Like, I will put in all the effort I can. I ask a lot of questions. I say, how can I help you? And people like to hear that. They like to hear, how can I help you? Because it's going to sound silly, but it's helpful, when someone's really stressed out or in a position, maybe that's higher than yours, and say, hey, I'm here, and I take good direction, and I listen, and I ask a lot of questions. How can I help you do your job? How can I make it better? That's someone that's easy to work with, instead of my way is the only way. This is how only, I know everything. If you're open yourself up to that learning and those experiences, and you can admit when you don't know something, you can ask for help. It really does take you a long way. And being nice to everybody helps too. Actually, genuinely, regardless of position, because people want to help. So when you've got a good support team around you, you can do a lot of things. It turns out I have a very, very good support team of people who push me to grow and be better all the time.
So you were the marketing director, and I was in broadcasting for 20 plus years in all levels of it. And one of the cool parts about being in radio is you get new artists that come into the market, not only for concerts, but new artists that come to the radio station and they perform for a small group. And then you get to know them on a more personal level. And you were involved in that. And if I understand correctly, that's kind of how you made the leap from radio and marketing into music and records and artist development.
Yes, that was my favorite part of working in radio. It's everyone thinks that when you're working in radio, you get to see the stars all the time, and you're constantly, elbowing, what is the term, when you're, rubbing elbows, whatever, backstage with everybody. But that's maybe 10% of the job. But that was one of my favorite parts, is that when the new artist would come through the station and no one knows their name, or I always use Brett Elders as an example. When he started his career, he was just this goofy guy, good looking, great voice, and he came and he performed for us, and we're like, oh, this guy's really great. And then now to have watched his career grow, that brought me a lot of joy. And I realized that's what I really, truly loved, was working with the artists and helping them grow their careers and make their dreams come true. Like, that brings me a lot of joy. So it was really fun to watch that. And then through that, artists come to the station with a record rep, a representative from the label, and getting to know a lot of them over the years that I was in at the Wolf. And again, being the best I could be and asking questions and being open to, whatever opportunities came my way and saying yes, helped me build relationships with those already established reps. So when the time came for me to move on from radio, I had a lot of support there as well. They spoke very highly of me, which I'm so grateful for. And that builds a reputation. And then that led me to my current position with Triple Tigers Records.
And what is that current position? What do you do?
I'm a record rep. I work with a small group of artists, and we help get them #1 songs on the radio. We work with our radio friends and partners. I'm on the West Coast, so there's 3 other regionals on our team, and we're all spread out, or whether we have regions of the U.S. But I work the West Coast and work with our friends in radio and promote Russell Dickerson and Scotty McCreery and Cam, and they have a single that they're promoting, or that we pick their single and we take it to radio and we say, you should play this. And we tell them why they should play it. And then when there's not a pandemic, we take our artists around to the radio stations as well, concerts and shows, and make sure they get to meet radio, and it's promotion. So we promote our artists and we say, look how great and amazing they are, because they are, and help them get their songs up to #1 on the charts.
So in regards to radio and records, speaking of promotions and marketing, what are the similarities? Because you went from promoting radio stations and major brands and local brands, Les Schwab, Disney, Entercom, and everything in between, to artists. So there's got to be some similarities in marketing and promotions. And then how is that different today? I mean, kind of what are you doing today to kind of fill that gap where you can't go out in person?
It's very similar. At the end of the day, it's all about image and it's about a brand, you know? I mean, you yourself, you're a brand, and it's how you represent yourself to the public to draw people in to want to either buy your music or spend money at your station or buy your product or whatever it is. You're out and you're promoting and you're selling something. So there's tons of similarities there between our partners in radio and our artists. I mean, it's all connected. It's just about promoting yourself. I'm constantly promoting myself as well as a professional in this business and someone, you know, someone that you want to work with, someone you want to talk to. I mean, that's why we're all trying to grow and be better. It's a lot harder now. I don't know. It would have been a lot more challenging had I started this job in the pandemic, because a lot of the beginning was a lot of face-to-face, and it's a lot of time with our radio friends and, making memories and getting to know each other and meeting our artists and spending time with them and watching them on stage every night. Now I have established relationships, so it's really just about keeping in touch. It's a lot of Zoom calls. It's a lot of regular phone calls. It's sending things through the mail. It's just trying to get creative and still promoting our artists and ourselves. And also just trying to find unique ways to partner on things that don't require us to be physically in person. So it's trying to get more creative with promotions and just getting the product out to the public. And, that doesn't happen without radio. So I'm just trying to get creative.
So when are our artists and management and venues talking about the possibility of events and concerts again? And probably not on a grand scale, but opening that door again to public events.
I think this year is going to be very telling of that. I hear anything from springtime to the fall next year to even January of 2022. I mean, everybody's kind of all over the board with that. It's really just going to be, how can we find the safest, most creative way to connect with listeners and fans and have them, can we all be together while still maintaining, appropriate social distancing rules and face coverings and everything. But everyone has a unique different idea. So you got to get out and you got to try them and figure out the best way to do that. But it's going to require everybody to be on the same page, which I think will take a little bit more time. Because obviously everyone has different opinions, which is totally fine. But it will be a very interesting year, I think. I'm anxious. I'm ready to go out. I've got my face mask ready to go. I've got my hand sanitizer getting me back on the road. However, I don't make those rules, so I'm just anxiously waiting for it to be a reality. I miss everybody so much. It's amazing when you don't have it, something you're used to all the time, traveling on the road and seeing your artists and seeing their band and crew and getting to see your radio people and hang out and go to fun dinners and to make all these great memories. To have that completely taken away, it's like, wow, I didn't realize how much I really loved it and I really miss it. So I'm hoping it's very soon.
So is there any kind of resource, link, or website that you can recommend to people who are interested in marketing, promotions, radio, TV, music industry? Is there anything that you go to that might be a great resource for somebody who's checking this out?
I think now, radio, a lot of radio stations, unfortunately, right now are pretty shut down. I would say outside of a pandemic, the best that people can do, or a good place to start, maybe not the best, a good place to start is calling your local radio station or going through just searching online and saying, working radio jobs and just seeing what's available, calling a program director, a music director, a marketing director. A lot of times the guy or gal at the front desk knows a lot of information about how to get into the building and the best way to do that. I mean, that's when I go back to saying being nice to everybody. You just never know who can help you and who you can help. But calling your station in your local town is a great place to start. If you want to start in radio, in records, it's a little more challenging. It's a very a relationship based. So a lot of times a lot of people get their foot in the door by being an artist or a songwriter or through publishing or through A&R or, you kind of have to get your foot in the door in another, like I got mine in radio. So you get your foot in the door that way, and then you build connections and relationships. But talking to the people, the more that you start in radio, and then if you start talking to people more and more and more, that can kind of lead you down a path. And if you put out there what you're interested in, you never know who might be able to help you. So I don't know if searching online is really beneficial in this business, since it really is very relationship based and who you know, but you have to start somewhere. So I would always say start at radio, because radio is a great connector for a lot of things.
And before we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you, what is a word that is in your head right now, something that you're kind of focused on, or something that inspires you right now? A word to take you into the next week, into the next day, into the next year. Is there a word you think about over and over and over again?
I think of a lot of words over and over and over again. Patience is probably my number one. I really don't have a lot of that, and I've gotten a very big lesson in patience this year, both personally and professionally. So I'm trying to take that into this year. Patience with my environment, a lot of patience with myself as well. Not being around my people and not being able to travel has been a real big bummer, obviously, for everybody. I mean, it's a lot of change for a lot of people. At the same time, this year has given me a lot of really incredible gifts, which is crazy to say when you've got a pandemic and everything's ending and everything's terrible. It's like, oh, but if you want to see it, there's some really amazing things that happened this year, but you got to want to see them. I'm also very hopeful for what this year could bring all of us. We've had this really rough year with 2020 and a pandemic and all these crazy adjustments. Again, a lot of really wonderful things. And I think now people are starting to get really creative, and they're starting to get really want to find a solution to help us all get back together. And especially in our business, I've seen our artists do some really wonderful things to try and keep connecting to their fans and keep reaching out, and they're doing it. They're doing it all the time. So I'm really hopeful and joyful for what this year could bring us. And why not? What do you have if you're not joyful sometimes? Try and be hopeful, and not everything is terrible and awful. And there's a lot of really good things to see in this world. So I just want to keep being patient for things and hopeful and finding that joy. There's a lot of it out there if you want to see it. So I think it's going to be a really great year.
Well, we are looking forward to fun again, and events and concerts, and seeing friends and artists and gatherings, and just seeing what this new year brings. Annie, thanks so much for sharing your story with me today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for the time.
And if you'd like to find out more about Annie Brooks, these podcasts, or DMG, just check out the show notes and be sure to subscribe. And thank you for checking out Bootstraps in Business.